This is an Irreverent podcast. Check out irreverent.fm for shows from all our friends. Hey everybody, welcome back to Exvangelical. My guest this week is Kevin Garcia. They are returning to the show. I had Kevin on. I had Kevin on way back at the beginning of the show, somewhere within the first 10 or 15 episodes.
Yeah,
and,
we go way back, don't we?
That's right, back when we were baby podcasters. So
back again. And guess what? Nothing's changed. Now we're just Baby Yoda podcasters.
That's right. Update those references.
You guys,
Kevin,
look, I'm keeping up with the kids watching the Disney Plus.
That's right. Welcome back to the show, Kevin. I'm really excited to talk to you about where you've been since then. I mean, that's sort of where I wanted to start, is really just talk about how things have changed for you over the last couple of years. You've gone into all sorts of things. You've started doing YouTube stuff. You've continued your podcast work. You've also done a queer adventure camp, all these different things. I'm not exactly sure where to start. One of the things that you've got in the bag coming up is a book called Bad Theology Kills. And really the main thing I want to talk to you about is really how sort of your spiritual practices have changed over the last couple of years and sort of your understanding of that. So let's go back to sort of where we talked last a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. You had sort of reconciled your sexuality and your faith, and you were sort of on that journey. Where has that journey taken you since then?
Yeah, I was just thinking back because I remember I was talking about, I was so kind of giving my testimony a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I think I thought I just kept talking about how free I felt. And then I think I was smacked directly in the face with all of the hard things. Okay, I have to find a job. I have to find a place to live. I have to find these things. I want to keep talking about this, but this isn't paying the bills right now. God, I think I was working for a nonprofit at the time and going all over the country, to different Pride festivals. Yeah. So since we last talked, I've managed a restaurant. I got back into my yoga practice. My dad died. I had a really serious relationship that also fell apart. I decided to go to seminary, and I'm finishing up my Master's of Arts in Practical Theology with an emphasis on worship, preaching, and the arts. That's the full name of a degree. Why is it so many words?
I don't know. How's that going to fit on the diploma?
I know. Just it's really just an MA, or MAPT is what it would be in the letters in my name.
Gotcha.
Which I also found out as I began this degree that apparently practical theology is the black sheep of the theological academic discourse. And I'm you know what? I would pick the underdog field. Sounds good. Let's go.
That matters to just the people in that weird subset or subculture of folks that have those degrees. And, that's okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was really convinced when I started school that I was going to be a pastor, in the classical sense of the word. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Hold on one second. RuPaul started playing in the other room. And I need to pause it so I don't miss it. Hold on. Sorry. I'm sorry. You can edit this in post if you want to, or you can laugh about it. Like me. I don't know if you can hear any of that.
I can hear you. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, cool.
You were saying that you thought that you were going to be a pastor in a classical sense.
Yeah. I thought I was going to be a pastor in a classical sense when I came to school. And it was over the course of doing all of these different kinds of conversations with, I was taking all of these pastoral care classes, and I was I already know how to do this. I was quite bored. It's just like, oh, you have to listen to people. You have to empathize with them. You need to make sure not to cross certain boundaries. I'm just like, where did y'all grow up? Like, is this like, is this a problem in the Presbyterian Church or something? Because I will say, like, this is maybe just a product of like, I lucked out, but like, my church culture growing up taught me how to love people well. And so I've always known how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think my fraternity taught me what it is to like, be loyal to people you call family, even, when they don't look like you. So like, I feel like I got all these new and different lessons on it. Now that I'm on the other side of it, it's like I'm trying to make the whole internet thing work / writing a book and trying to, get that out there. But I think something that struck me the other day about the book that I was kind of worried, and I was like, well, what if it doesn't sell? I'm just like, well, if it doesn't sell, like I didn't lose any money on it at least, because I don't really care about making money. That's the thing. Is that like I was at one point very concerned about like getting a publishing deal and like making sure I go like the traditional route of publishing, because people are going to look down on you if you publish your own book. And I'm like, if people look down on me because I published my own book, like that's really snobby. And it's also like somewhat, I don't want to say classist, but it's like very gatekeeper-ish. It's like, because like I know plenty of people who have gotten book deals, published books that aren't good.
Right.
And I'm like, I know my book is fire. And it's been that's verified by multiple humans. And so it's like, shoot, if it's good, it'll sell or it won't. And either way, I'm happy.
Right.
Because I did the thing.
That's right. And that's a victory right there, that you did it.
Yes, it's out of my brain. And now I can move on to the other things I want to write about.
Right.
But we're not here to talk about those things yet. We have to talk about this thing, right?
That's right. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about, you have a book, it's called Bad Theology Kills, and I want to talk about the title. I think that's something that resonates. I've got a shirt with that phrase on it.
Hey-yo.
That I got from you. And I mean, it's very succinct and it's very punchy. And I want to know how you understand that and the way in which, when you use that phrase, what is it about that phrase, bad theology kills, that you want to communicate?
Well, it's one of those things where I want to be like, I said what I said. That's like the thing I think people like really want like I don't know, like something deeper than that. But like the thing about the issue is it's not that deep. It's like bad theology is killing people. And I have this passage in the second chapter, I think, where do you ever do one of those things where like you go back and you read something you wrote and you said, holy fuck, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
That was my reaction to this passage. I was like, I don't know who I was channeling in this moment, but thank you. Thank you, Diane Sawyer. I just feel like she was with me in that moment. But the passage was like, why am I telling you my big gay sob story right now in the beginning of this book that we're supposed to be unpacking theology? I said, I'm telling you my story because a lot of people did not survive to tell theirs. And I said, when I say bad theology kills, I mean that I tried to kill myself twice. When I say bad theology kills, I mean that I still have days when I think about it. When I say bad theology kills, I mean that trans women are getting killed and nobody's talking about it. When I say bad theology kills, I mean that we have 9 years to fix the climate shit happening or we're all going to die. When I say bad theology kills, I mean that people care more about one cell in a woman's body than about the woman who got raped. When I say that bad theology kills, I mean that there is an entire government bought by the gun industry, and they care more about their short-term profits than they do the lives of our babies who are getting slaughtered in elementary schools and in high schools and at gay bars and at concerts. When I say bad theology kills, I mean that Leah Alcorn stepped in front of a bus because her parents wouldn't use her name. And so when I say bad theology kills, I mean that Trayvon Martin was shot and no one did shit about it. When I say bad theology kills, I mean that like I have black friends who are scared to walk in public or do anything because you can be in your own damn home and a police officer can walk in and shoot you and say, I didn't know it wasn't my apartment. It's when I say bad theology kills, I mean there's babies in cages at the southern border. Like when I say bad theology kills, I mean it's killing all of us. It's killing, poor whites. It's killing poor blacks. It's killing Native people. It's killing all of us. And it's one of those things that's like we have to like see like we have to stop playing along with a charade. And the reason like I'm telling these stories, like my story, and then also giving people a way to rework their own hermeneutics in order to like liberate themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm just really ready for like a spiritual revival of sorts. And I don't mean that in like the old school, like I want everyone to love Jesus sense. I mean in the sense that we can see the world as it actually is and not for what we thought it was or what we wish it could be. Because once we can see what it actually is, to see that the emperor is naked, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I knew what that phrase meant, but I had never heard the full story until very recently. Do you know it?
Oh, and you mean about the child being the one that notices? Is
Yes.
that? Yeah.
And the whole thing is just like everyone was playing along so they wouldn't offend the person in power.
But then the child,
and I'm like, that's what.
Right. Then the child tells the truth.
Yes, and then the emperor is embarrassed and takes it out on everybody else.
Right.
And it's like, oh my goodness, what would happen if we just all realized the emperor has been naked this whole time? And also just like, and like, I have this big thing about just like, I want to tell, it's time for us to tell the truth about everything to everyone. Including the fact that we're already forgiven.
Yeah,
Ugh.
and that's how you begin your book. Is from the very beginning you say you're already forgiven. Sometimes, like the very sorts of things that we're supposed to sustain us, the things that we're taught to sustain us, once we learn about them, once we, the common languages, once we deconstruct them and all that sort of thing, and those sorts of practices can sort of just become like ash in your mouth, and no longer be the thing that that really resonates or feeds you anymore. What would you say to someone that like that style, that type, that language that hurts me now? Like, where do they go? Like, what? How do you encourage them?
Yeah, I think it's. I think for the person who struggles around things like just using Christian language or spiritual language or things that just doesn't harm them, I would say like your hurt is still valid, obviously. And I think that like, for me, it's like Jesus, like God, the concept of God here's my thing is that like, I get that people need to change language. And I think that like my language is like, I feel like I'm translating a little bit. What my role feels like is like, I want to help people get from simply just Christian jargon into kind of like a more universal way of talking about things. But the majority of us don't know what the pathway to that is. And I think we don't know the pathway because we don't feel like we have permission. And what I mean by that is like the permission to like look at something that was once harmful towards us and say, the past no longer can touch me. The way that this was used to abuse me is no longer a threat to me. And I can choose to forgive, not only not for the sake of the person on the other side, but forgiveness for me is like, I no longer want the past to be different than what it was. It's like, I now understand, like, it had happened, but it can no longer touch me. And so it's that to me, like, was a big freeing moment. It's almost just like, it's like, God, I don't want to be a Christian, and I don't want to be a Christian anymore. I don't want to be a Christian anymore. And then, like, I feel like I had this realization, like, Kevin, you don't have to be a Christian. Like, you don't have to have that label.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got really, really down on myself and just like, but I don't want to give it up. Like, I like, because like in some ways I still am, in other ways I'm not. And like, then like there was that beautiful thing that Jesus said, just like, well, who do you say that I am? And I don't know. It was almost just like when I no longer needed to be a Christian, like I just realized it's like, oh, that's not the point. Like the label isn't the point. The language isn't the point. So for me, it was like, I realized for a long time it was super triggering for me, and I didn't want to talk about Jesus, and I didn't want to use the concepts that I grew up in within Christianity. But right now it's the language that really works for me. And I think for people who like come from a tradition like this, we don't have I don't think there's like a new base language yet that we have established. So it's like, we're still finding language maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes any sense, because at the same time, like if people are weirded out by me specifically talking about Jesus, I'm like, okay, I'm sorry that I mean, I'm not really sorry, because like I really love Jesus, and I know that sounds weird still, even for me to say that. I don't even know what it means to say that I love Jesus, but I do.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing about language, is that like once the symbols sort of seep in or soak into yourself, then it's hard to extricate them. Like they're sort of there, and you have to reckon with them one way or another.
Well, and that's the thing. It's just like, I think that's part of the thing, is that like we do have all of this baggage and this pain around what the church has done to us.
Mm-hmm.
And with good reason. Like there's so many reasons to stay away from it. And I think there's something that I've been toying with, this idea of just like, the reason we are still so angry at the church in so many, and I'm going to actually, let me speak for myself, and maybe this will resonate with someone. The reason I think that I am still angry at the church sometimes, like it's nowhere near as bad as it was, because like the anger consumed me, and it was like, I had this horrible traumatic thing happen to me, and there is no justice. And that's like really what's hard. But the thing I realized was like, something, I'm going to out myself right now. I read A Course in Miracles, and I fucking love it. And no, Marianne Williamson did not fucking write A Course in Miracles, y'all. It was a woman in the 80s. Okay. Anyways, all that to say, A Course in Miracles says that anytime we perceive an attack from someone, it's truly us being defensive of something that does not need defense. And so, speaking of that, like when they're always like, A Course in Miracles is always talking from the perspective of like our highest self, the one that is connected to God at all times. And so I'm like, you know what, that idea is hard for me, but I want to try it on just to see what it would feel like for me to say, I don't need to defend myself anymore against this thing. Because like, I don't need defense. Like I'm okay. I'm here. Like, and it really caused me to ask myself, I was like, okay, like if every time I'm angry at something, or I see something out in the world, I can only see it because it's present within me. And so therefore the hypothesis becomes, if I'm angry with the church, there is a part of me that I'm angry with myself. And so I sat with that a little bit, and I said, okay, why am that? I swear this is all coming back around to a point. I'm not just blathering.
No, I'm tracking. It's totally, you're good.
Cool. So I tried this idea on, and I was like, okay, like, what am I mad at myself for? And I was like, I'm mad at myself for so much. I'm just like, it was mostly like, there was a while I was just like, God, why did I give myself to something so stupid? Like, why wasn't I smarter? Why couldn't I see the signs before? Why didn't I do something different? Why couldn't I come out when I was 16? Why couldn't I come out when I was 21? Why did I go become a missionary? Why did I do all these stupid things? I was deceived. I feel dumb. I feel hurt. And so that, like, I got to this point, I was like, oh, like, Kevin, you need to forgive yourself for the thing that you think that you did. Because it's not your fault, Kevin. Like, you really were manipulated. You grew up in a culture that told you that there was only one way to love God and that there was only one way to be in the world. And so, of course, you did that. You couldn't have done anything different. You were doing the best you could. And guess what? You're not there anymore. So why are you still mad at yourself? Because think of all the things you could be doing if you were stuck there. Now think of all the things you can do now because you are here.
Mm-hmm.
And it just got me thinking. And I literally had this visualization for myself where I sat across from myself and I kept saying, like, you were forgiven. And it just like clicked with me. I'm like, oh, this is what he was talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so I say all that to say this. I think that there is an opportunity for so many of us to forgive ourselves for the things that we think that we did. And that, I think, can break so many of our shame cycles that we keep spinning back into. And just like, y'all, like, it's not our fault. Like, really, it's not our fault. It's like that scene in Good Will Hunting. It's not your fault. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Do you know what scene I'm referring to?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's very powerful when he just keeps insisting it's not your fault.
Our fault. And I think that we need a big dose of that, because once we do that, once we get past, like, for, you know, the queer folks in the community, just like once we get past, like, it's okay to be gay,
mm-hmm.
we can start thinking about everything else. And that's really what excites me.
Right. I've also been in a similar space of like, okay, like, do you need to feel obligated to stay angry?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is no. Like, there's that fire needs to burn, and it needs to sort of be tamped out in some way. But it's not. But I think sometimes we replace our faith, like what we thought of as our faith, with this obligation to stay angry and like sort of keep that vindictiveness when that doesn't really serve you or the people you're trying to convince to leave.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. Very recently I kind of just came to this conclusion. As much as I want the church to change, I am not holding my breath, and I'm no longer giving my energy to that end. Like, I think my work in the world now is to create new spaces and new kinds of communities, new kinds of spiritual connections and communities, so that people can start healing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's really what I'm interested in, because I keep looking at like this system that is the church, and I'm like, you know, there are some really amazing churches out there that are doing really great work. Sure. And I just don't care to be a part of them anymore. And that's fun. Like, and I say that with the caveat that I go to a queer Black Baptist church in Atlanta. Like, so go figure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not really interested in like reforming these mega churches. You know, we can shake our fists at Bethel, but like, they're going to be trash until like the world burns. So it's like, rather than like, and this is another thing too, is like, when we're not giving someone the power to make us angry. People just make us angry. Sure. But also it's just that, like, me staying angry is investing my power into this other thing, this object, this person, to say that you have control over my happiness. Like, if you would just like accept me, then I know that like things would be better in the world. And that's not the thing that's going to make me happy. I'm just like, I can be happy right now because I don't fucking need you anymore. That's if I could say anything in Bad Theology Kills, that's my battle cry. Mm-hmm. It's like, bitch, I don't need you anymore. It's like, and that's the thing too. It's like, I think like the church taught us how to be codependent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, high key, like, people were codependent on churches. And so even like after we've broken up with the churches, we're still checking on what they're doing. We're still figuring out what they're like, you know, which ways they fucking up, so that we can say, oh yeah, I'm so glad I got out of that. Which, sure, yes, you did get out of that, but like, when are you going to stop obsessing? You know,
Right.
let me tell you what, there's better things to spend your brain's energy on.
Absolutely.
Ooh, ain't you tired? You know, that's me. I'm just like, y'all, like, I'm just like, it's like, Kevin, why aren't you doing these things? And it was just like, I'm tired. And like, I really like want to like pay my bills. And, and those people don't want me. I'm like, why would I go, you know, it's like my mother is the only person who like I care about like making sure that she understands like why she believes what she does, because like she gets the pass in my life because she's my mom.
Right.
Um, Everyone else, I'm just like, y'all do what you want. But, like, you're trash. Like, stop killing people. You probably won't because you're trash. So, you know, when they finally get ejected from your communities, I'm going to have a soft place to land. Um, it's like, I want to be a light I want to be the light out in the desert. I'm just like, y'all leave the empire. It sucks. We've got beer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk to you a little bit about this sort of thing we have with labels and how you've sort of found a way to be not concerned with that, just as you don't. You're no longer concerned with necessarily participation in an organized church. You're also not really hung up on like whether you consider yourself a Christian or whether someone else considers you a Christian. And I think that one of the things that we're conditioned to do in the sort of fundamentalist evangelical type backgrounds is that we're sort of primed to obsess over labels and fitting into some pre-configured, predestined category of some sort. We're always sorting people into us versus them. It's a hard sort of mentality to shake yourself out of. But that's one thing that you explore in depth in your book, which is this, like, when you gave that up, you found other ways to explore different types of spiritualities. I'd love to hear how that was freeing for you and the different sorts of spiritual practices that you've been able to nurture.
Right. Yeah, it harkens back to something I was saying earlier about the idea of who do you say that I am? Because it's like, if I say that I'm a Christian, but I do not do as Christ has commanded, am I a Christian? You know, it goes back to the thing of what does it mean to be a Christian? And the thing about it is like, if you're doing the thing, it doesn't matter if people call you something. Like, you're doing the thing. You're fulfilling the law. Like, you know, you're fulfilling the law of love, if you will. And so for me, it just got to this point of just like, all these people out here are going to obsess and say, you're not a fucking Christian because you're gay. And I'm like, okay. And would you like to, do you have anything else you'd like to say, Brenda? Or can like, can I go order my Popeye's chicken sandwich? You know? Now, to the other part of the question about practices, and this is why people say I'm not a Christian anymore, is because I'm also a witch, and I'm fine with saying that. That's something that's changed since last time we talked. I'm a witch. What I've been studying is like the magical traditions of my heritage, which is indigenous Mexican culture. So a lot of brujeria. So what I'm into, a lot of incorporation of working with the saints. So like it folds really nicely, you know, into my Christian woo-woo-ness anyways. I've been working with tarot for 3 years now, and I do it professionally. Like I read for people, and I use it as a tool for spiritual direction as well as personal reflection. So it's beautiful. And it's like, for me, like the tarot is just like, it's holding up a mirror and asking if, like, I always tell people, it's like everything with like religion, right? It's like, at minimum, if these are simply just a set of cards that over years and years they've developed meaning, and I have certain symbology which like trigger certain questions in my mind that help me be more introspective and better. If that's all it is, it's just like an exercise in psychology. Fuck yeah, dude, that's awesome. But I will say that when I read for people, a lot of people cry. So like, you tell me what's going on.
Indulge me in this, because I've over the last few months, I've become more curious about it. So if you don't mind giving a couple minute primer sort of
Yeah.
on what tarot and sort of divination and all those sorts of things entail, because to me it's
Yeah.
very sort of enticing, and I see it a lot more often than I have it in the last few years. It seems like it's cropped up more, and obviously because I follow you, like you mentioned it and that sort of thing. But even in a broader culture, it seems like it's receiving a bit more prevalence and attention than it did a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I've noticed it too. I think there's a little bit of like uh pop pop magic or pop witchcraft that happens where like you see like all these metaphysical shops popping up all over the place, and now there's questions about, cultural appropriation and like the ethics of the ethics of metaphysics, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And how like different magical objects that, like, whether it's crystals from the ground or white sage that you're taking at an alarming rate where it's like causing it, it's like, oh, guess what, like we're depleting the entire Earth's supply of white sage, which is supposed, like, that belongs to the native people.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of their tradition. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't come from a native background, that's not your magic, baby. Go find your people's magic. So I, again, working within brujeria and certain other things. Anyways, where the question was about tarot, correct?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
tarot. So tarot has its roots like way back in Jewish mysticism. And also in like early Christian mysticism as well. There's actually a beautiful book called Meditations on the Tarot. And it's like all about Christian Hermeticism and how, like, because within the tarot, there's two kinds of cards. It's the major arcana and the minor arcana. And the major arcana tell the story of the fool's journey, which is the story of the hero every single one of us that goes through. And not just like within like a full life cycle, but just within like the miniature cycles of our own lives, the seasons of our life. And so each of these cards has a specific meaning behind them. And sometimes it's like a broad plethora of meanings. And the reason some of them are so broad is because when you're pulling some cards for someone, you're looking for both like where are they positioned in the spread, what direction are they facing, what story are they telling together, and then also on top of that, using one's own intuition and like listening to one's body. And again, every single reader is different. So like I will say again, this is descriptive and not prescriptive. When I sit down with people, I pull cards. I say, okay, well, what do you like after I go through like what the cards quote unquote say or what they are speaking to me or what I'm feeling in my person. I say, okay, now tell me what, like, from what we've talked about, what resonated with you. And then they'll say, well, this makes sense to me because X, Y, and Z. I was like, okay. So they'll begin explaining things. And then I'll start to say, that's interesting because that part of the story corresponds with this card in this way. Do you think blah, 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 blah? And so I'll ask a deeper question and then pull some more cards, explore the conversation deeper. So for me, like, these are tools to like just kind of intuit the questions that need to be asked so we can get to the answer we need.
Mm-hmm.
And usually my question anytime is just like, what do you want? It's like in any given situation, what do you want? And so that's what I help people do.
That's great. That doesn't sound evil at all. Why did they?
No.
Why were you convinced it was evil?
No, and that's the thing. It's just like everyone's like, you do the tarot cards, you're going to open up a portal to the demons in your home. And I'm like, nah, that's what happens when you play Bethel on Spotify. You know? No, but that's the thing is like everyone like warned me. It's like, no, you're inviting demons. I'm just like, no, I'm not. I'm specifically not inviting demons. In fact, I'm inviting the spirit of my father and my grandmother, and, of our sister Rachel and Saint Teresa. I'm like, that's the people I'm into my space. Like, it's one of those things where I'm just like, do you really like, and this is again, like, me probably being like real Christian a little bit. I'm just like, do you think so little of God that you think that God would allow even my dumbass to be like taken advantage of by a quote unquote evil spirit? Like if your God is weak enough to allow that to happen, then like pretty shitty God, if you ask me. Get a new one. Upgrade. Like over here on this witch side, like, we've got all sorts of things. And here's the thing is like, I'm still a universalist slash a humanist slash kind of still a Christian and also a witch. So like, you tell me. But yeah, that's what my tarot practice. I do it every single day for myself. I read for people over Skype or in person. And then from that, sometimes people like from those things, I'll say like, hey, do you think that you'd be interested in coaching work, like doing one-on-one spiritual direction? Because some people I'm just like, yeah, like I feel like this could be a thing. Not all the time. And I don't use it as a recruiting tool. Like, unless I always say just like, if you want to talk about it later, let's do that. But it's been really cool because like now I've got like some of my clients are like, we're incorporating tarot into their work, into their own like sort of spiritual, like learning new spiritual practices for themselves. Another one of my spiritual practices is just singing a lot. Like whatever the hell I want, because singing is good for you. And I feel like a lot of people like they leave church spaces and they stop singing.
Oh yeah, that's very true. I mean, and some people enter back into church spaces that are harmful for them, like just because they miss singing.
Because there's something about singing with people. I don't know what it is.
Right.
Let me tell you what, Wednesday nights, me and my friends go to this little dive bar in Avondale Estates, and we sing karaoke for probably 4 hours. We convinced the bartender to keep it open on Wednesdays late night, and so we could just sing karaoke. And like our karaoke is like our iPad linked up to a loudspeaker with a really shitty microphone, and we just have a ball. We go out there and we sing and we have fun. And like I started like we were like standing or like passing a joint around outside, and I was like, y'all, this is kind of like church. And then I was like, Kevin, it is church. And I said, the sacrament of the Lord. And then I lit up and passed it around. And so now when I go to karaoke, I always say like, all right, everyone, sacrament time. And we go outside and I bless it because I am the high priest. But it's
nice.
Get it? You get it? No one else can steal that. TM, trademarked.
I won't press you on that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you absolutely did. So
okay, good. I feel like my ADD brain like just walks me around in all the directions.
And that's totally fine. That's what I was hoping for this conversation, was just to have this open-ended sort of conversation where we could catch up and talk about where you are now and just let it be what it is.
Yeah. I think those are the best things.
Yep.
I'm excited about the future for the first time in a long time. Like, I'm actually really, really, really excited. Like, it's like one of those things where like, yes, everything is so shitty, but also like, I can't stop looking at the good things too.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of good happening in the world, and it's hard, like I feel like we all went through the social media grinder, and we learned, not Grinder the app, but the
no, like the one that grinds things.
The meat up. Grinder that destroyed that. Anyways,
let me tell you what. Sometimes Grinder is like a meat grinder. It just destroys your heart, your soul, your self-esteem. Sometimes your dick. You never know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I threw you off with totally that one. Fine.
No, but what I was going with that was just basically that there's a lot of good happening in the world, and there's a lot of good that's come out of the types of things that we've been involved in, and
I think progress. So too. Like that is like the thing was like let's think back to where we were 4 years ago.
Right.
Like I feel like all of us like have had to like, I don't know, like I feel like we've all kind of gone through this like really intense season of maturation, like at an accelerated rate, mostly because like I think it's just like the sign of the times, like you can't unsee. It's like the curtain's been pulled back and we see that like it's just another white man running the show. And now it's like, oh fuck, what are we going to do? And I think it's something that we've said, just like we've never done this before in some ways. And so that's why it's scary. This is like another line from A Course in Miracles, is that like I feel like there is the tendency to say like I don't want to do any sort of spiritual anything anymore, because like the only thing that can happen is I'll get hurt again. And that is probably true, but that's going to be true anywhere you go. And I don't even think like spiritual community needs to be like a formalized, like come together, sing songs to a deity or, collective idea or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like karaoke, the people who I go sing karaoke with, I care about them and I love them. And we do birthdays together and we see each other and we're involved with each other's lives. And like some of us are Christian, most of us aren't. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, we don't need an organization anymore. We just need to be organized around the right things. That's what Brian McLaren said in The Great Spiritual Migration. But I think he's right, is that I don't even need to organize religion to be organized around the right things. I just think that people need to be organized around the right things, Mm-hmm. And like, once you find that thing, like it becomes unstoppable. And this is the thing is like, people will say just like, I don't think it's possible. Or there's like, I think it's possible for other people. It's possible for other people to find healing. It's possible for other people to find hope. It's possible for other people to get over their shame of whatever. But the thing is that the illusion that it is for somebody else and not for you is exactly that. It's an illusion. Mm-hmm. And so this is where like I get, a little Course in Miracles. There is a line that shook me to my core, and it's this. It states plainly, you do not have to believe anything that is not true unless you choose to do so. For all that could be changed in a moment, for it is merely a misperception. Hmm. You don't have to believe anything that's not true. And that's the thing. It's just like we are told you have to believe this. And we're like, no, it's not true. Why do I have to believe it? Answer, you don't. And so you can argue with anything. And also you can make up anything like that like is helpful. Like, because if it's helpful, it's probably true. Right.
Right. And so to you, is that sort of the essence of what you would consider good theology?
You know what, if you really want to boil it down to it, yeah. Is it helpful? Is it help? Like, it's the same. It's like, what's the fruit? It's the same argument we do all the things like, what fruit is it bearing? Is it good fruit? Sick. Let's stick with it.
Well, that sounds like practical theology to me.
Thank you. You can apply at ctsnet.org. Columbia Theological. No, just kidding. Don't come here. Just kidding. You can come here if you want to. I'm leaving next year, so what do I care?
That was a dad joke and a pun, but it was also a scathing critique of the consideration that that's the lowest degree. Come on now.
Don't drag me in public like this.
I'm saying the people that consider your degree the lowest degree. What's that shit about?
Oh, right.
I'm saying it's the
You're saying what's on their mind.
Right. It's the nuts and bolts. It's the shit that matters.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's just like practical theology is just like it's interested in how does this impact someone's life? Because like that's the thing is like there's all like these like Calvin has all these institutes on Christianity and whatnot. And like, I'm sitting around in my theology class and like, we're talking about just like, well, what is the Trinity? Well, you can't, I'm like, it's a mystery. Like, that's it. It's a mystery. We can say it's like 1,000 different things because we can only speak of God metaphor. Can we please go do something? I'm like, we're wasting our time. Like, I understand God more through Madeline L'Engle than I ever did through C.S. Lewis, and you can take that to the bank. Ugh. As you can tell, I'm very done with being in seminary. I'm so ready to just be a master and, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Grad school is a slog, for sure.
It's like, it's not undoable, and I'm not saying it like it was an unworthy endeavor, but I tell you what, like when I think about what I could have, it's like, what else could I be doing right now? And I'm like, well, being a missionary kind of fucked up my resume, so I've got like no marketable skills right now. So I guess this is the next best thing.
Do you know that skit with Kristen Wiig from SNL where she goes, "Sorry."
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yep.
that's what popped
Dang.
that's what popped in my head with that.
Yeah, that is exactly what I want the response to be. I'm just like, me too, man. Me too.
Go for it, man.
I think it's just a really, really good idea. A cat named, and then we'll call her Sadie for short, you know?
And you could get one of those T-shirts I've seen online lately that says "Maybe today, Satan."
Maybe today.
Maybe today.
Yeah. Please make that the title of this episode.
Okay.
Maybe
because you requested it. I absolutely will.
Maybe. Oh, that's funny.
Maybe
That's
today,
really funny.
Satan with Kevin Garcia.
Maybe today. Oh, we're going to hell.
You know, that's what you named my episode of your show.
I know. I'm not going to lie. I was being self-referential because we've been on the air long enough to reference ourselves.
That's right.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Why do I keep doing that? Like this, that's all folks jingle.
I don't know. Just roll with it, man.
Yeah. I'm not going to judge my.
A thing I realized today is adding comma space man is my new thing apparently. Even with chats with my friends, I'm like, just go with it, man. I always just add man to everything. I don't know why.
I go through phases where I call I don't know, like I mostly call people friend, but sometimes I say babe a lot. Although it's very interesting because like I'll also say, hey girl, to anybody who like I talk to, even like my best guy friends. It's very interesting. Like the people who don't want to be called girl are mostly like gay cis men. Like I feel like if I called you girl, you'd be like, hey, what's up? Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, I'm good.
Because like no one fucking cares. Because also it's because my question for like people like that is like, are you not comfortable with that because you have like this issue, like a strong sense of your gender and you're very proud of it? For like, you know, example, trans men. Of course, I don't want to call a trans man, hey girl, because like obviously they worked hard to like become themselves.
Right.
But like for someone who's like, see, that's the thing. It's just like, I want to know what's behind that. If it's like I'm strong in my gender identity and this is what I like to be called, sure. If it's because you think being called girl makes you weaker or demasculizes you or like makes you like less than because someone called you girl, like you need to like get over yourself, girl. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So that's my question. And I say that as like a genderqueer person who floats in between things. So it's like, gender is so frustrating sometimes.
Right. Yeah, and I think we all like are far more sensitive than we used to be to gendered terms. But then it is weird, like the sort of colloquialisms that are like guys, saying man, you saying girl, you know, like there is still a gender component there, but it's also it's a iffy spot in the language, you know, like we're getting better about knowing what it means and not harming people to whom it might affect. But you know, sometimes you just add man to the end of your sentences for no clear reason.
Because your body is just in the mood and she's gonna say something. And that's another thing too, is like at the end of the day, like if you say don't call me that, of course I'm not gonna call you that. Like I'm gonna respect your wishes. And also just like I'm just curious. I think there's just a question among the gay cis men. Do you have internalized, you know, misogyny that you need to work through, Betty? Girl? Oh my God. Someone's going to write a letter about this and I'll be like, you're right. I'm a dick. That's the thing. Okay, no.
But you don't like me?
But you don't like me? Oh. That is one thing I really like. I've gotten to this place where it's just like, I will always tell, like, so I've got like these 3 rules of radical honesty that I have for my personal self. This is what I try to practice all the time. And I'm happy to say that like most of the time I feel good that I keep these. They are as follows. Number one, I'm always okay to name my feelings because I know that I am responsible for my feelings. Meaning to say, like, if I'm feeling hurt by something, I will express it to the person who hurt me. If I'm feeling sad, I feel okay to tell you that I'm sad. If I feel that I'm excited and joyful, like, I'm definitely going to share that. Like, I'm always okay to do that. And I never put it on other people, but I do express it. Number two, I always name my needs, and I am responsible at the end of the day for getting those needs met. So, like, if I can express my need to a friend, lover, whoever, boss, I can express my need, but if, like, they can't give it to me, I either need to, like, recognize that it's not a need, or I have to figure out a way to get it met myself because I need it. Whether that is, like, I need to take a nap, or I need space, or I need next week off. Like, I have to express my needs, because how the hell is anyone going to know what I need if I don't say it?
Right.
And three, I always ask for what I want because I'm always okay with hearing no. And that one is a hard one because you're allowed to have hope, but, like, also, like, you have to detach from your outcomes, whether it's in love or anything else.
Right. Yeah.
But I think
three solid rules there you got.
Yeah, it's just like, it's basically tell the truth about everything to everyone. And my caveat is, like, don't tell me if you're going to throw a surprise party for me. I love a surprise party for me. Lie about that. Don't tell me the truth about that. But like, it's serious, like, and, like, I was telling, like, one of the questions I have for all my clients was like, what, like, well, why don't you do that? Or why don't you tell them that? Why can't you tell them that? Like, and it's one thing to, like, say that to, like, it's one of the people will say, like, well, that sounds really, really hard. I'm like, it's not difficult. It's just different. And, like, when I started doing this, like, people, like, I could tell, like, who was, like, down for the ride for, like, a relationship with me and who wasn't. Because, like, when I started getting really, really real about my trust with people, I'm just like, I trust you to be honest with me at all times. And if, like, it's really, really hard for me, it's like, if you, like, you're allowed to do whatever you want, but I'm not going to guarantee that I'm going to be around if you break a boundary, like, if you break a boundary that we've discussed and you show no remorse of changing or, like, wanting to change. Because it's one of those things at the end of the day, like, when I love myself, I have the capacity to love everyone else so much better. And so that is going to be a priority. And, like, if you, like, and that's another thing, I don't have to be friends with everyone. That's a new thing, right? We don't have to be friends with everyone.
Right. Yeah.
And here's something else that gives me a lot of hope. I was talking with Mickey Scope Jones the other day about all of my woes. And I was expressing to her, like, some conflict that we were having within our friendship group. And she said, Kevin, I want to let you know, reconciliation is hard work and it will happen, but it doesn't have to happen today. Might not even happen this year. Might not even happen in 2 years. But if everyone keeps trying their best, eventually maybe reconciliation will happen. And so it got me to this point where, just like, I don't need to be friends with every Tom, Dick, and Harry doing the work. I can be supportive. I'm not going to talk shit about nobody, but I also, like, I don't need to be besties with them. Right. And that feels really good. I feel like church culture says, like, you have to be, like, of one accord with your brothers. And I'm like, well, we're not, and we want different things. So no. It's like, right. I can love people, but sometimes the best way for me to love them is to, like, let them go do their thing and let me do my thing.
Right. Yeah. And that doesn't necessarily need to have malice behind it. It's just that people are different.
It has, and the thing is, like, it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with me. It's like I want to feel good. And is this, like, someone I met recently was talking about, like, the price of admission within relationships. Is like, in order to be in relationship with this person, it's going to cost me X or it's going to cost me some form of energy, because, like, that's just the nature of relationships. It's an exchange of energy. And if this person is not giving me this energy in return that I need in order for this to be a healthy, beneficial, mutual mutually beneficial relationship, I'm not going to invest into that.
Right.
Because like everyone's like expects you to do it. I'm just like, well, what if I actually just did me? And what if I actually like worked on forgiveness, not by continuously re-traumatizing myself, but by building a life that was better than the one I had before? That's what I'm interested in. Oh, that's what I want people to get to.
Mm-hmm.
It's let's start like I can't remember who said it. There's a black theologian who talked about the diseased what did he say? The diseased social imagination of America. And basically what he said is like the reason like we can't imagine anything, well, it's like it's also supported by psychology. The reason we can't imagine anything better for ourselves right now is because we're still in the middle of our trauma. Like, and until like we start doing the work of forgiving ourselves of what we think we did, like we'll never heal.
Right.
But let me tell you what though, when you are willing, like willingness is everything. It's just like your intent, like this is another Course in Miracles thing. It says like your intention doesn't mean anything. Your willingness is everything. If you are willing to start rifling through your baggage, if you are willing to say, I want to let this go. Like it's almost just like once you're willing to do something, it's like magic happens. It's like, oh my God, I'm doing the thing I thought I could never do because I was willing. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it definitely resonates, and I mean that's sort of something that's a word I always come back to is resonate. You know, like what you're saying hits me, and like it vibrates. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
there's truth in that.
Yeah.
That there is something about being open to the change and being ready to put that first step forward. And I mean, it's not as if that is a trivial thing, you know, like
Right.
that takes time to get there for a lot of people.
Yes.
And like,
And I think that like it's a dual thing. It's just like you're already there and this is your first step.
right.
It's a weird sort of paradox thing. I think like Pete Holmes was saying it on a couple of different podcasts. He's just like, I wish people could just see that they're already home,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I keep coming back to that thing of just like, oh, just like come home. Like it's like it takes time to learn that your body is a home and that your body can be a home for you and that it's not just a flesh prison. I mean, it's
Right.
the thing is like it's not a flesh prison. Like it's not a prison. Like it's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that I'm willing to talk about for forever.
Right.
And I mean, I've been blessed with like a sunny disposition as well as Wellbutrin and Zoloft, and I have no problem being everyone's cheerleader. You know?
Right. I think that role suits you very well. And like, and I always know you're genuine whenever you post something, whenever you
Oh,
put something up that is an encouragement to someone. I know that because I know you, and I know we already talked about intention and how it's not everything,
mm-hmm,
but I know that the intent behind what you're doing is
mm-hmm.
to encourage people, and that's a wonderful thing. And I'm glad you're out there doing the things that you're doing.
I'm not crying. You're crying. Thank you. I received that. That's very kind. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I'm so glad that, you know, these last few years have been so
Mm-hmm.
productive for you in the very good sense of that word, not like the
Yeah.
capitalist hellscape of this, you know, like not just like in a
Mm-hmm.
capitalist sort of,
Yeah.
you've done these things and your years have been productive. It's that
Ugh.
you've produced, again, using that language of fruit, like you've
Mm-hmm.
found something and moved
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
from something bad to something better to something good.
Yeah. And I think that's really the crux of it is like I've been reading Starhawk's The Spiral Dance, and in it they talk about the birth of the world from like an old religion perspective or the witch tradition. And she would say that the universe was not created, but it was born. And so from that, it's like this idea, I keep thinking about that, like how everything that like comes forth from within us is like, it's something that like, it's not necessarily created, but it's like, it's born of us. And so it's almost like I can see it's the same thing. It's just like, like rather than saying producing fruit, like, it's like, we grew this,
Mm-hmm.
we grew this thing together. And it's one of those things, just like any life is tended by many farmers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like everyone's had a hand in it, for good or for ill. People are always coming by our vines and dressing them however they want to, if we want to use that language.
Yeah.
I'm such a fucking Christian, goddamn. But that's the thing, is like I believe you when you say that, because I see it as well. And I can't tell you how good it feels to say that. Like everything it's one of those things, was just like, I grew up hearing that gay people like got AIDS and died. And while that is the AIDS epidemic is a huge part of our collective story, that is not the end of the story. And that is not the only story. And like, I look at my life now, I wrote a book, and like, I'm getting a master's, and, yeah, sure, I've got like a shit ton of debt, but like, who doesn't, money's not even real. And plus, like, when the earth burns up in 9 years, like, we're all going to get our student loans forgiven. So what's good? Oh my God.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that got dark real quick. Oh man, I am nothing. Again, that sunny disposition I have. I'm just a blessing. Oh my God.
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Just recognize where you've come from and where you are now, and take pride in that. And that's wonderful. I think you should. I'm really glad that we were able to talk a little bit about your forthcoming book, and where how you've changed over these past couple of years, and just catch up on the air. It's been great.
Yeah.
I value you, and I'm really excited to see this next chapter for you. And where can people find you online? Where can they find your book? All those deets, just plug it all.
Right. You can find me on the internet at the Kevin Garcia. That's THEKevinGarcia.com. I'm on most social media platforms at the Kevin Garcia. If you Google me, I'm the first result. I've worked very hard on that.
Yes.
You can check out my new book, Bad Theology Kills, subtitle Undoing Toxic Belief, and what is it? Undoing Toxic Belief and Reclaiming Your Spiritual Authority. Yeah, Reclaiming Your Spiritual Authority. I really need to get that down, like, as a better sales punchline. I just like get jumbled on the words because dyslexia is real. And it's actually going to be coming out end of January. We're pushing back the release date because our dear friend Mike McHarg is going to be writing the foreword to my book.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
I am so thrilled. I got to spend Thanksgiving with him. It was so lovely.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
And but the thing was, it wasn't even fucking warm. I went to California to be warm, and it was cold. So fuck you, LA. Just kidding. And my podcast, A Tiny Revolution, is going to be back January 2020 as we jump into the first question I want to explore, which is, what is masculinity? And we're going to be talking about it from like 20 different perspectives.
Oh, wow. That'll be very interesting.
Oh my gosh. I'm really, really and not just masculinity, but also like, what is queer masculinity? And also like, what is... in a world where like we know what toxic masculinity looks like, and we can point it out, where are the examples of healthy, good masculinity coming from? Mm-hmm. And I think exploring that from my own perspective as a genderqueer person is going to be really fun. Talking with trans men, talking with trans women, talking with women, talking with everyone. So those interviews are happening right now. And I'm going to edit it together a little bit more like less of an interview style and more like a serial docu style, which I'm excited for. I've never tried this before.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
What else? If you want to book a tarot reading, you can do that on my website too. If you want to pre-order the book, you can do it at thekevingarcia.com/book. And if you want to send me a love letter, I don't want that. So please don't. No, someone suggested, do you have a P.O. box? And I'm just like, technically speaking, yes, but also I feel like that'd be overwhelming.
That's true.
So, drop me a line on the Twitterverse. Like I try to interact with as many people as possible. Give me a shot on the gram. I'm very active there. And then also in the comments below, tell me what I could fix about my face surgically,
Oh my God. What?
Exactly. Listen, I want to know. When I get rich, I'm going to redo my face and you're not even going to recognize me because I'm going to be so beautiful. What?
What?
No, I'm joking. I'm just talking out of my ass now because I am having a good time. What?
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thank you
I'm
for
just
having me.
Crack up.
Hey, everyone, remember, also, I want to say before we hang up, if you've been listening to this show for any amount of time and you have not become a Patreon supporter on Exvangelical, here's the tea, y'all. We cannot do it without you. And I just want to say this for any sort of creative out there that you're listening to. It is so important that we support the things that are making the things that matter. So please, if you haven't, go over to Blake's fucking Exvangelical podcast Patreon, pledge $5 a month because you have it. And by the way, it's only basically above $5 a month that anyone makes any money off of Patreon after fees. So do that. And I love you.
Thank you.
And also,
Kevin.
I love you, Blake.
You
You're such a beautiful human.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah. Thank you.
Really, I have a hard time receiving compliments, and I received that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very much.
So, my mama always told me when someone's giving you a compliment, you just say thank you because it's got nothing to do with you anyways.
Well, thank you, Kevin. And thank you for coming on thank you for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Oh, man.
Loved it.